NFL draft season is upon us, and I've seen a bunch of people already post their mock drafts, but I haven't even done my first one because there's all this other stuff I wanted to get out of the way first. But here we are, my first mock draft of the off season for the Texans, and let me just say this: the first mock draft is usually the most inaccurate one for many, many reasons. One, free agency hasn't happened yet. A lot of these needs are going to be filled in free agency. Two, the scouting combine is currently going on and pro days are yet to happen. So some of these guys are going to fall and rise based on their performance in the scouting combine and their pro days. And then you're going to have some players that are going to fall for things that they did off the field and dumb stuff like that. So the first one is usually inaccurate. Not only that, since the comp picks haven't been announced yet, like the Texans currently have 5 picks. Now the Texans are projected to get a few comp picks, so once those comp picks get announced, we're gonna have more picks. So unfortunately, the website that I use to make these mock drafts, the Draft Network, in case you guys are wondering and you want to make your own mock draft, it's called the Draft Network. They only have the Texans with 5 picks, so right now I could only pick 5 players for the Texans, but when the comp picks come out, I will be able to do like a full mock draft for the Texans. Now, in mock draft 1.0, I decided to go best player available at position of need. And this is how I feel like every team in the NFL kind of approaches the draft. Unless there's like a crazy good player at a position that you don't need, on the board, then everybody is drafting best player available at position of need, I feel like. Like you hear all these teams say, oh yeah, we're gonna draft best player available, but ain't no one ever really drafts best player available. I think that's a bunch of BS. Teams draft best player available at position of need. Now, before we get into this mock draft, be sure to hit that like button if you haven't done so already, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and click that notification bell so you do not miss another video. So, anyways, let's get right into it. With our first pick in the second round, 57th overall, I selected Jalen Reagor, wide receiver, TCU. Now look, for the longest time this whole offseason, I've been saying, the Texans have to choose either a running back or some sort of pass rusher with our second round pick. But when I looked at the draft board, and I do a bunch of mock drafts, and this is how it fell to me a bunch of the times. A bunch of the times, Jalen Reagor was right there for the Texans. Now, like I was saying, I wanted a pass rusher or a running back, but when I seen Jalen Reagor on the board, I'm like, you know what? I have to do it. Like, I have to pick Jalen Reagor. For one, I didn't like any of the running backs on the board, and any of the pass rushers. I wasn't in love with any of them, but I do like Jalen Reagor. And keep in mind, this wide receiver class is stacked. Like, there's a bunch of good wide receivers, so Jalen Reagor, maybe in past drafts he would be a first round pick, but in this draft, he has first round talent in my opinion, but he's not going to go in the first round because 7, 8 wide receivers are not going in the first round, So Jalen Reagor was my pick with our first pick, and I think it makes perfect sense. I think he fits the Texans perfectly. I mean, he is 5'11". I know a lot of people don't like smaller receivers, but he's 5'11", but he's almost 200 pounds. So he's not built like, a Will Fuller. He doesn't have a small frame, but he's a very fast guy. Even though his 40 time in the scouting combine, 4.47, even though it wasn't fast, he does not play at a 4.47 speed. Dude is a burner. He can burn people. Like when I look at Jalen Reagor, I think of a stronger Mecole Hardman from the Chiefs. Because Jalen Reagor, not only is he a burner, but he is great in open field. Meaning, punt returner, kick returner, Jalen Reagor, he can do that. The Texans, they need to move on from DeAndre Carter. And Jalen Reagor could go back there and return kicks for us, return punts for us. He's very explosive. He's great in open field, so he could also be a gadget player, like little end arounds. Bill O'Brien loves them wide receiver screens. Guess what? Jalen Reagor, he's got you, Bill. He might pick up a first down every now and then with those little wide receiver screens that you love to do, even though Tim Kelly will be calling the plays, but we'll see what Tim Kelly does. But I do like Jalen Reagor. Fast guy, good route runner, great in open field, strong hands. When you look at a small receiver, you typically think small receivers, either slot guys or speedy, fast guys with average hands. Nah, Jalen Reagor, he's got some strong hands, man. Like, you could just throw it up there and he's going to pluck it out of the air, even though he's 5'11". But like I said, he's built well. He's almost 200 pounds. Like, he's not your little walking stick like Will Fuller. I think Jalen Reagor would actually be able to stay on the field. And then look at it this way. You don't have to cut Will Fuller. You get Jalen Reagor on a cheap rookie deal, second round pick. You're not going to be paying him much. So you'll have D-Hop, Fuller, Kenny Stills, Jalen Reagor, and Kiki QT, who I do expect to, bounce back after the terrible season he had last year. So your wide receivers would be stacked. Deshaun would have weapons. We'd be able to run all sorts of gadget plays with Reagor. And, yeah, I think Reagor here makes sense for the Texans if he's there. Like, I would not be mad if Jalen Reagor is the pick, even though I said pass rusher, running back, even though I said that, I'd be okay with Jalen Reagor. I would. All right. With our next pick in the third round, I had the Texans selecting Kenny Willekes, defensive end, Michigan State. Well, edge rusher, Michigan State. Now, this guy, he's 6'4", 260 pounds, so he's not exactly, a Jacob Martin smaller type of guy. This is a guy who can actually be a 3-down player. Now, when I look at Kenny Willekes, I'm just looking to get Brennan Scarlett off the field. Now, Willekes doesn't need to get stronger, but I mean, every rookie, in my opinion, coming into the NFL needs to get stronger, at least a little bit. But Willekes does need to get stronger, but he's very disciplined. He, keeps his gap integrity. Like, he will stop the run, unlike Brennan Scarlett sometimes, lets the guy bounce outside, even Whitney Merciless sometimes. And he's a very sound pass rusher. Like, I'm not saying this guy's going to be a stud and rack up 192 sacks a year, because that's impossible, but he can definitely be a guy who gets you like 7-8 sacks a year. And, that's fine when you have a guy like JJ on the inside and then Whitney on the other side. It's good to have a guy like Willekes that understands his job, can do his job, can win one-on-ones, stops the run, and is very disciplined. He's a player that will do his job. And if you want like a little feel-good story about him, he was a walk-on. Who else was a walk-on? J.J. Watt. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be the next J.J. Watt, but this guy, he's clearly hungry. I feel like if we were to draft him, he'd come in here and be like, Brendan Scarlett, get out of here, you suck, and take his job. I do think Willekes can take, the starting job from Brendan Scarlett day one, because I need someone to take the starting job from Brendan Scarlett. But, look at it this way. We add another pass rusher. We'd have JJ Merciless, Jacob Martin. Don't forget Duke Ejiofor. A lot of people forget Duke Ejiofor. Charles Omenihu. And then we'd have Willekes. That's 6 pass rushers right there. And at this point in, JJ's and Merciless's career, they're a little bit older. I think it's time you put them, on a little snap count. I'm not saying they're only going to play 20 snaps a game, but, J.J. Watt in particular, when he plays, he's usually out there 99% of snaps. I don't think we can have that anymore. I think J.J. Watt should be like an 85% of snaps type of player. Rotate in Charles Omenihu, Jacob Martin, Duke Ejiofor, and Willikers. Let J.J. last till the end of the season, to the playoffs, and then just completely unleash him there. Rest him up, kind of like they do in the NBA, load management. Kawhi sits out games all the time, so he's fresh for the playoffs. Do it to Watt. Why not? Watt's older. He doesn't really need to play these games. To Watt, in my opinion, the most important thing to him at this point in his career, winning a ring. And the best way to do that is keep him fresh for the playoffs. So, yeah, Willikers was my pick, and I would be so happy if we got him. With our next pick, I had the Texans selecting Cam Akers, running back out of Florida State. Honestly, I just went with this pick because I feel like the Texans needed a running back. And in my opinion, Cam Akers was probably the last good running back, or top-notch running back left on the board in my opinion. But to me, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, and Clyde Edwards from LSU are all better than Cam Akers. Now, Dobbins, Swift, and Taylor were all gone when I picked Jalen Reagor. Clyde Edwards was still on the board, but I opted to go with Jalen Reagor instead. So I went with Jalen Reagor, and I was hoping Edwards would be there with my next pick, but he wasn't there, so then I went with Willikers, and then here I was in the 4th round. I went with Cam Akers. Now, Cam Akers, don't get me wrong, I think he could be a good running back in the NFL, but Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Clyde Edwards, in my opinion, are way better. But Cam Akers did have some good production in Florida State. And look, I'm not a guy that watches college football. I'm not a big fan of college football. And I'm pretty sure you guys know that. Not a fan of the XFL either, by the way. To me, those leagues, college football, it's kind of child's play compared to the NFL. I'm sorry if that offends anyone, but not a fan. But, I was doing my research on Cam Akers, and from what I heard, from what I've seen, Florida State's offensive line and just their offense in general was a mess. Yet Cam Akers was still able to produce well. So I think those are good signs. Now, Cam Akers, he is 5'11", 210 pounds. Well, 212, but I'm just rounding down. So he's built big. He's like a little bowling ball, I guess you could say. He's a power back. He can do a lot of things for us, but I do see a flaw in his game. His vision. Sometimes there be a hole, and he doesn't hit it. He ends up going somewhere else. Now, I kind of want to excuse it because, what I heard about the Florida State offensive line, but in my opinion, that's not good because in the NFL, the game is faster, players are stronger, and the holes, you hear it all the time. In the NFL, the windows close way faster. So, if the dude is struggling to see the open holes at the college level, how will he do in the NFL? But look at it this way. Carlos Hyde, he's older. The Texans already tried to re-sign him during the season, but he declined. So it is very likely that Carlos Hyde will be walking. And I feel like a guy like Cam Akers would be the perfect replacement for Carlos Hyde because I do feel like Cam Akers is Carlos Hyde with a bunch of upside. That's the way I view him. Carlos Hyde, I don't know if you paid attention to him, but he missed quite a few holes as well. And of course, not to mention Carlos Hyde fumbled 6 times this season. I don't think Cam Akers would fumble that much with us, so I think it'd be an upgrade. Of course, you have Duke Johnson as well. You'd get Cam Akers and Duke Johnson. And keep in mind, man, like, a lot of these backs, like a Kareem Hunt, Alvin Kamara type of guys, Derrick Henry was picked in the second round. Like, you never know. Like, nobody expected Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt to be, like this spectacular running back. I mean, Arian Foster was undrafted, guys. So, with running backs, you just never know. Sometimes some end up being good. Sometimes others end up sucking. So, like, you never, ever know. Like, for example, the Jaguars took Leonard Fournette, like, what, 4th overall or something like that? And the dude's, not all that great. Like, he ain't no Derrick Henry or Christian McCaffrey type of guy. So, yeah, you never know with running backs, but I do think the Texans need a running back, especially if they lose Carlos Hyde, which I think they will. So, yeah, Cam Akers was my pick. And with the next pick, I had the Texans selecting Jordan Fuller, safety out of the Ohio State University. Now, Jordan Fuller, he's from Ohio State. So, if you guys know, you guys been paying attention, Ohio State is DBU. Now, some people say LSU, some people say Ohio State. I don't care which one you think is DBU. The fact is, Ohio State produces very, very good DBs. Now, Jordan Fuller. There is definitely flaws to his game, but when I think of Jordan Fuller, he reminds me of a former Texan safety, Andre Howe. Now, when the Texans lost Kareem Jackson and Tyrann Mathieu, I was okay with it. You know why? Because we had Justin Reed, who's way better than both in my opinion. Justin Reed's going to be a stud. And then we had Andre Howe, this not great but good safety. Like, Andre Howe did his job. He knew his role, and he did his job well. But then Andre Howe retired, and then, we got Tashawn Gibson. Now, not that I have an issue with Gibson. I think Gibson is a decent player, and I think he should stay here next season, even though, he's on a 3-year deal, so I think he will stay here next season. But Jordan Fuller, deep, rangy cover safety, can cover sideline to sideline, can play the deep ball. He's fast. 6'2", about 205 pounds. Legit, I think we need someone like this. You get Justin Reed playing somewhere in the middle, and you can have Jordan Fuller playing deep safety, covering the deep ball, because he can literally cover sideline to sideline. And then you have Gibson playing closer to the line of scrimmage since he is a slower guy. I think that would be good for the Texans. And not only that, he'd be a good backup, a good depth piece, a good special teamer, because he's fast, he can fly down the field. Now, like Andre Howe was not this amazing tackler. He was not a guy who should be playing near the line of scrimmage. Unless you're blitzing Jordan Fuller, I don't think he should be playing near the line of scrimmage either, because he's not this perfectly sound tackler either. He needs more work, and his pursuit angles, in my opinion, also need some work. I think he can correct that, but as of right now, if we were to get him, I think he'd be able to contribute to the defense, contribute to special teams, as long as we kept him where he's comfortable, and that is as a deep safety. So I'd be very happy getting Jordan Fuller, especially that late in the draft. Keep in mind, Andre Howe was a 6th-round pick, so it is very possible that we can get a player like Jordan Fuller that late in the draft, and he could turn into a nice player for us. And with the last pick, I had the Texans selecting Robert Windsor, interior defensive lineman out of Penn State. Now, this is a guy who I think can develop into something. You know how the Texans picked Titus Howard, Lonnie Johnson in last year's draft, and they were dubbed as development players? Okay, I'm okay with selecting development players as long as it's not in the first 3 rounds. Now, Robert Windsor, I think he's a guy that you can possibly develop into something nice, because he's shown plenty of, I guess, upside, plenty of flashes that he can be an interior pass rusher. So that's why I picked him this late, because in the 7th, 6th round, it's okay to pick players that you see flashes in, and a player can develop into something else. Now, he does have flaws in his game. I mean, he's going to be a 7th round pick for a reason. He's weaker, needs to get a lot stronger, needs to work on splitting double teams. He needs to work on stopping the run. But I feel like the upside is there, and I feel like if we were to pick him, it would be wise to come up with a fake injury. Oh my god, he broke his finger, IR him for the year, Have him sit in IR for a year, work on himself, get stronger, learn the game, and then maybe in 2021, he can come in and be something for the Texans. Because keep in mind, Merciless and J.J. Watt are both 30 or above 30. So you got to start planning on life after them, like life after J.J. Watt. We already got Willikis, we got Jacob Martin, Omenahu. So now you add in, Windsor, another guy who can possibly be something. I'm not guaranteeing we can turn this guy into, a Chris Jones, Aaron Donald type of guy, but it's worth a shot. I mean, it's a 7th round pick. Why not? Take a chance on a guy who has upside, who has shown potential. So that was my final pick for this draft. Like I said at the start of the video, unfortunately, I could only make 5 picks because the comp picks haven't been announced yet. So next time, hopefully the comp picks are already announced so I can make like 7, 8 picks instead of 5. And yeah, that's all I have for you guys for today. Comment down below your opinion on my mock draft. Comment down below your own mock draft. Like I said at the start of the video, be sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell if you haven't done so already. And yeah, appreciate you guys for watching, sticking by me all these years, putting up with me. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.